Now, along with Dusty, Scylla and Lulu, Petula Clark was one of the big British voices.
She's been entertaining audiences for an absolutely shocking 85 years straight. But what if I told you that Petula Clark's secret to outlasting every music legend isn't talent? It's one rigid studio rule she's followed since 1958. While icons like Elvis, Whitney Houston, and Amy Winehouse burned out and faded away, this 92-year-old British singer discovered something that preserved not just her voice, but her entire career. The music industry tried to break her discipline, but she refused to compromise. In this video, we'll expose the hidden obsession that transformed a wartime child performer into Britain's most enduring entertainer, and why her approach shocked everyone in the recording business. To understand Petula Clark's extraordinary career, you have to go back to 1940s London, when bombs were falling and a 9-year-old girl was about to make broadcasting history. Born November 15, 1932, Petula Sally Alwyn Clark didn't choose show business. It chose her during the darkest period of World War II. While most children her age were being evacuated from London during the Blitz, young Petula was performing live on BBC Radio, entertaining British troops and boosting civilian morale. Her father, Leslie Clark, was a publicity agent who recognized his daughter's unusual vocal talent. But what made Petula different wasn't just her voice. It was her supernatural ability to remain calm and professional under pressure that would define her entire career. By 1944, at just 12 years old, she had her own BBC radio show called Pet's Parlour. Think about that for a moment. While other kids were playing with toys, Petula was hosting a national radio program during wartime. She was already developing the iron discipline and perfectionist standards that would carry her through the next 8 decades. Her early recording sessions revealed something remarkable about her work ethic. Unlike many child performers who were pushed by stage parents, Petula demonstrated an almost adult-like dedication to getting every take exactly right. Studio engineers noted that she would insist on multiple takes until she achieved what she called the perfect sound, a standard she maintained throughout her career. The trauma of performing during wartime bombing raids created an unusual relationship with her craft. She learned that consistency and reliability were survival tools. When air raid sirens interrupted recording sessions, she would calmly wait in bomb shelters, then return to complete her work with the same energy and precision. This early training in maintaining composure under extreme circumstances became the foundation of her legendary professionalism. The turning point came in 1958. By then, Clark was a seasoned performer, juggling film shoots, live television, and grueling recording schedules. The late-night sessions demanded by many producers left her exhausted. In one interview with the BBC, she recalled, "My voice just wasn't there at midnight. I felt tired, flat. It wasn't me." Faced with mounting vocal strain, Clark experimented. She began insisting on recording sessions only during daylight hours, between morning and late afternoon. She noticed an immediate difference. Her voice stayed fresh, her mood lighter, and her takes smoother. This wasn't superstition. It was practical. As Clark explained, "I sing best when the sun's up." It's as simple as that. From then on, she drew a firm line. No night sessions. Even at the height of her fame in the 1960s, when artists like the Beatles thrived on late-night creativity, Clark held her ground. Producers adapted, reorganizing schedules to fit her daylight window, a rare power move in an industry notorious for relentless demands. This daylight ritual began quietly, almost privately. But as Clark's voice retained its crystalline clarity decade after decade, it became her silent advantage. By protecting her voice and emotional energy early on, she set herself apart. Not just as a star of her era, but as one of the few who would keep singing beautifully well into her 90s. As the 1960s music scene exploded, artists became known for marathon, overnight sessions. The Beatles, the Rolling Stones, and countless others worked deep into the night. But Petula Clark refused to follow suit. By then, her daylight-only rule was non-negotiable. In a 2003 BBC Radio 2 interview, Clark laughed about studio engineers who initially balked. "They thought I was joking. No singer says no to an evening session. But I simply told them, call me tomorrow morning when the sun's out." Her insistence raised eyebrows in an industry steeped in nocturnal culture. Some producers grumbled it was inconvenient, but her unwavering stance earned respect. Veteran producer Tony Hatch later admitted in an interview, "Petula knew her voice better than anyone. She wasn't being difficult, she was being smart." This daylight rule soon became legend among collaborators. Fellow musicians recalled how Clark's sessions wrapped by 4 p.m. sharp, sometimes mid-song if dusk fell. Yet her results spoke louder than any protest. Hit after hit poured out effortlessly. By the 1970s and 1980s, Clark extended her career beyond pop into musicals and cabaret, all while adhering to her ritual. "I just don't do dark studios," she reiterated to The Telegraph in 2013, adding that working in daylight kept her bright and joyful, and she believed audiences could hear that joy in her performances. Rather than fading with age, her discipline seemed to reverse the typical decline of singers. As journalists marveled decades later, her voice retained a vibrancy uncanny for someone past 80, directly tied to this daylight-only philosophy. Clark's strict daylight approach had ripple effects far beyond her personal schedule. Industry insiders began pointing to it as a factor in her vocal longevity. While peers from her era, many plagued by vocal strain, retired or faltered, Clark still recorded albums into her 80s and 90s with minimal signs of vocal aging. In 2016, when she released the album From Now On, critics noted her effortless phrasing and youthful clarity. Journalists at the BBC linked this to her daylight discipline, quoting Clark herself, "I've done it since 1958, and I've no plans to stop now." Fans, however, were stunned when they first learned of the rule. Online forums buzzed with reactions like, "She's 90 and still sings better than half the industry." Maybe this daylight trick works. The public saw it as both quirky and brilliant, proof that old-fashioned discipline could outlast modern excess. Even younger singers began citing Clark's example in interviews about vocal care. Her daylight rule transformed from an eccentricity into a template for artistic sustainability, a living case study in how longevity in show business is built. Now, at 92 years old, Petula Clark's daylight ritual has taken on an almost mythical quality. While most performers from her era retired decades ago, Clark remains active, occasionally recording and even appearing on stage, her voice still remarkably steady and clear. In a 2021 BBC interview, she reaffirmed her commitment. "I've always sung in daylight. I'm not about to change now." For Clark, this wasn't just about vocal preservation, it was about mood. She described sunlight as energizing, lifting her spirits and keeping her emotionally aligned with the music she performed. Her disciplined approach stands in stark contrast to the stereotype of the hard-living entertainer. Clark never embraced late-night excess or relentless touring burnout. Instead, she quietly carved her own path, proving that longevity in music isn't just talent. It's sustained care and consistency. Historians often cite Clark's rule as a small detail with big consequences. Vocal coaches point out that nighttime sessions typically coincide with fatigue, dehydrated vocal cords, and reduced performance quality. By avoiding that trap, Clark effectively bypassed decades of wear. As one BBC commentator summarized, "Petula's daylight recording habit isn't eccentric. It's genius. It's how she sung through 8 decades without losing what made her great." Petula Clark's story offers a rare glimpse into the intersection of artistry and discipline. Her unwavering daylight-only recording rule is more than a quirk. It's a masterclass in how seemingly small habits can shape an entire career. Younger artists now look to her example as proof that sustainability in music is possible. It's not about overworking or chasing trends. It's about understanding your instrument and protecting it fiercely. Clark herself summed it up best in her BBC conversation. "I've never been one for secrets. I just know what works for me. And if it's worked this long, why stop?" Her voice, still resonant, warm, and instantly recognizable, remains living evidence. For fans, her discipline isn't just impressive, it's inspiring. At 92, she's not merely a relic of the past. She's proof that with care, passion, and daylight, yes, daylight, longevity in music isn't a miracle. It's a choice. Thanks for watching. Click here to check another video and make sure to subscribe to our channel.